Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Honor to the Sublime One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. I know everybody here, so we can skip the introductions. And I wanted to talk today about meditation, but not in, this is not the traditional talk about meditation per se, about the types and all that kind of stuff. This is more of a talk about meditation and priority. One of the biggest things that you always hear people say is, I don't have time to meditate. And even, I am the only Buddhist I know in my daily life, and some people do know that I meditate, and they ask me questions every once in a while because you can tell they're interested. Um, but I don't have time. I have kids. I have a husband or a wife to deal with. I have this, I have that. I work multiple jobs. I don't have time to meditate. Well, I want to talk about the fact that no matter what's going on, you do have time to meditate. And also the fact that it's something that depends on your priorities. Everything depends on your priorities. But I wanted to start off with a quote from Ajahn Chah, who also spoke. I mean, he is a very famous teacher, and people came to him. I don't have time to meditate. And Ajahn Chah's quote is, if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. And I think there's a couple different meanings to that. The first one is the most obvious one, is if you're breathing, you can watch that breath. You can be mindful of the breath. Because you're using the breath as an object of concentration, of meditation. But also that if you're alive, if you're still breathing, you can still meditate. There's time, you can still do it. And the reason why I talk about priorities is this. I read a great article, and this is not even necessarily from Buddhism, but in terms of a fitness website that I belong to. And after those of you who know me, I had weight loss surgery, and I'm heavily into all kinds of different crazy fitness things now. And there's some things that I like to do, and I say, oh, I don't have the time for it. And I read this article, and in it, the guy's talking about priorities. What is priorities? What if you really want to do something, truly, really want to do something, then there is always time to do it. You can always make that time because it's something that is a high priority in your life. And back then when I first read that, I was like, you know what? That makes sense. When I read this, I had already established a daily schedule of meditation. And I realized, well, I did that because meditation became a priority for me. So, and I look back to myself at that point, I looked back, 3 years ago, I was trying meditation, but it sure as heck wasn't a priority. Not like it is today for me. Because 3 years ago, I wouldn't have woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or woke up early to go to work an hour early or 45 minutes early to meditate. Heck no. I was along with all my other coworkers coming in at 9:10, 9:15, saying, "Oh, I don't have time to meditate," or attempting to meditate at night and just not working out. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? Of course. How easy it is. When it became a priority, when it became something that I found and felt was important in my life, it was easy to just change my schedule. Now, of course, granted, I don't have children. I'm not married. So it's a lot easier for me to change my schedule than somebody who has to take care of children. But I still say that there is time. And one of the best concepts that I've seen lately, that's taught by um, one of my teachers at Bhavana Society, is called Buddhist M&Ms, like the candy M&Ms, but Buddhist. It's meditation in a minute. So that's what it's called, Buddhist M&Ms. And the concept is that every hour, if you are able to take that 1 minute out of 60 minutes to just stop what you're doing, follow the breath, and just observe for that 1 minute, and then go back to what you were doing, then over the course of a day, you have 15 minutes of meditation right there. So we have this concept in our head that meditation is we have to sit on a cushion for 30 minutes or an hour. And that was stuck in my head as well in the beginning. I got to sit on this cushion. I got to do this, I got to do that. And for me, the first thing that kind of broke me out of that and made me realize that no, that's not what it's all about, was when I learned walking meditation. And then I was able to start doing during my breaks at work. I just walked, do walking meditation. Before I was walking before, but it was just a walk. I didn't know about meditation walking. And then as I learned more from the sutras, learned more of what the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught about meditating in, well, basically whatever you do, you're mindful and you're meditating. But you're mindful whether sitting, standing, walking, or lying down, right? The Buddha also talks about being mindful while you're sweeping a path or going to the bathroom or all these things. Everything that occurs in our daily life, we can use as a tool to develop concentration and mindfulness. You're driving in your commute. Well, you can do a couple things. What's the priority while you're driving? To get to point A to point B. But while you're driving, what are you doing? You're trying to escape having to drive 40 minutes to work. So you have a radio on, you're listening to music, or you're listening to talk radio, which is something that I have done for many, many years. So you're doing whatever you can to distract your mind, because let's face it, driving is boring, and especially if you're driving the same route every day, over and over and over. But what I found, the amazing thing that I found, is that if you're able to turn that music, that talk off, and just practice mindfulness during that drive, there's no boredom, there's no restlessness. Or if there is, you just observe it, and it goes away, and you're just in the moment. And driving, it becomes exciting again. I remember one time, going to the monastery, and for me the monastery is a 5-hour drive. Um, I decided, you know what? For 5 hours, I'm turning off the radio, not listening to any music, nothing. And it wasn't something that I necessarily forced myself to do. I felt like my mind was ready to do this, that it was in the right place. So I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. And, of course, what's the first thing that happens, right? When you turn off the music, songs come into your head. It's like your mind's like, oh, wow, you know what? If I can't listen to anything, well, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start singing. So, but then after a while, your mind calms down. If you're just observing and you're just watching. And so, for all those hours, it was very peaceful, very joyful time. And that was just during driving. I didn't sit down to meditate at all during that day. Even while, if you're at work and you're typing, my job is very note intensive. So I do a lot of typing. And that again is tedious and filled with negative feelings. But if you can even use doing something like that in every job, even if somebody loves the job, there's always a part of that job that everybody hates. Like, I love my photography business. I love taking pictures, but I don't like editing them because it takes forever. So, you know, you can use those times to develop that mindfulness, to work on your meditation. And what are you doing? You're not sitting down. You're not, quote unquote, officially meditating at all, but you're still developing mindfulness. You're still developing concentration by doing these things. Now, it might not be to the same level as sitting there and really concentrating on the breath, but what I found is that every little bit helps. Every little bit, even if it is just that 1 minute for the hour, is 1 minute closer to liberation. 1 minute, 1 inch, one little inch closer towards insight, wisdom. So it's never wasted. So I suggest, if you do have trouble with meditation, and you really don't have any time, it doesn't, it, a minute is not a long thing. You can afford to, quote unquote, waste a minute. I have my job, so some of you know I work in Child Protective Services for 7 years. And I do a different part of the job now that I'm not in the field like I used to. But the workers I know, they feel that they're so overwhelmed, and they are. They're completely overwhelmed. They don't have enough work time in the week to do everything that the job wants them to do. And there are repercussions to that. Bad things can happen, and they can get fired. Children can get hurt. All this kind of stuff can happen. So they have this in their mind that they can't even take a lunch. They won't go out and take their hour lunch, even though they have to. Even though, you know, they still, in the timesheet, they still have to account that they took an hour unpaid lunch, but they're still going to work because they feel that they don't have even a second to stop working because they're so far behind. And I came to that realization after a couple of years. You know what? There will always be too much work. I can only do as one person what I can do. I'm going to take my breaks because I need it for my sanity. I'm no good of a worker if I can't take my breaks and get away from that. And so, even though I was busy, even though there was way too much work, I'd say, listen, I'm on my break. Done. And for that 15 minutes, I can go out and do my walking meditation. Or if it's at lunch, I can eat, and sometimes I like to take a little nap. The greatest geniuses, like Einstein, they learned the importance of taking a nap during the day. It's very healthy. But anyway, um, sometimes we just feel we're caught up in this anxiety, and in that anxiety, the perception is that we don't have time. But then we spend 20 minutes on Facebook. I'm guilty of that myself. Sometimes I have to realize, holy crap, when I really pay attention, I've been on the internet for 20 minutes. And I think, well, what I could have done if with that 20 minutes. So there's always time when we are being able to be mindful and see things as they really are. See that time that you do have time. But it comes down to priority. The Buddha said many, many places that you have to, and even his last words, it was all about striving for your own salvation. Nobody can bring you there. Nobody, and not even, if you just have any experience in life, or if you see the way life works, we're not even talking about enlightenment, but if you have a problem, nobody can really help you. It's your problem. You have to deal with it. And so the Buddha says, samsara, this being stuck in this endless cycle of being born again because of our cravings and our attachments, that's our problem. And only we can deal with it. So the only way to do that is to practice. So we are the complete masters of our own fate in that regard. The only way we do it is to practice. And practicing meditation is no different than practicing an instrument or practicing a skill. No difference whatsoever. When I was a teenager, I liked to play the guitar. And I loved to play the metal and rock and roll, and I fancied myself a guitarist and all this stuff. But I came to the realization that I don't have the priority or the desire to play this guitar 12 hours a day to become this amazing guitarist, because that's really what has to happen. You have to put time into it. So lo and behold, I didn't have a band, and I didn't become a rock star and go out and tour the world. Right? It's the same concept. The only way that you start to see any benefit and progress in letting go and in insight being realized is through the practice. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no way around it. It just doesn't happen. So, it's been my experience, or at least in my experience, what I found is the more I've practiced, the more I want to practice, the more it becomes a priority. Now for me, it's to the point where I'm looking at the possibility of becoming a monk. And of course, that's putting the ultimate priority on meditation, right? I mean, that would be a large chunk of what I would do as a monk, is to meditate and to practice the full breadth, the full depth of the Buddha's teaching, the meditation, the living a simple, a moral life, a beneficial life, all of that coming together. So, and that is why the Buddha said that the being a monk or a nun, that's the best, that gives you the best chance for practice. He never said that only monks and nuns could practice, or that only monks and nuns could be highly advanced or anything like that. But he says this is the best, this gives you the best chance for it. So of course today, and even back then, the Buddha never expected or thought everybody should be monks. And today, nobody, not everybody should be monks. So we're stuck with, we're stuck with, I have a priority that I do want to try to meditate. But I have this, and this. I work 2 to 3 jobs. I have 2 children. I have to worry about the house. I have to worry about the cars. I have to worry about this. I have to worry about that. Where do I find the time? Another thing that is helpful that I've found and that I've seen from other people's experiences is being around people who also set doing this as a priority, this meditation. And that's not even necessarily friends or sangha, but family. It's a lot easier to be able to meditate if your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife is also doing something like that. It doesn't have to be a religious thing. Just, this is a time for us to do what we want to do. If you married a Catholic, well, that's the time for it to pray. And this is my time to meditate. Right? It doesn't matter what you're doing in that specific time period. You're just having, this is the family time, or this is our time to do this. Right? You're setting priority that every day, this is our time. I'm going to do the rosary. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do prostrations. I'm going to do this. I'm going to. So that's another thing that I've gotten in talking to people. People who have successfully been able to do these things to make it more of a priority in their life. So just the fact that you're here right now means that there's definitely some sort of interest in your mind at doing this. I don't know what your levels of advancement are or how much you meditate. I don't know any of that. But just the fact that you're here right now shows that you do have some interest in this, and there is the possibility of it being somewhat of a priority, or having some kind of priority in your life. And let's even back up in that. So maybe your goal isn't even to be enlightened, or even if it's not that, even if it's just, I want to be able to live a better life and be more at peace. That's a good goal too. That's a great goal. And that's worth doing something, putting a priority on something that can give that to you. Right? Just being able to live a more beneficial, a happier life also affects the people around you. So there are many good reasons to be able to set that priority to meditate. But in the end, it comes down to each and every one of us. I've seen, I've been to Bhavana Society, but the monastery I go to in West Virginia, and I've been to there during Wesek, right? And during Wesek, it's a big festival. And this I've never seen so many Sri Lankan people in my life together. 200, 300, 400 people coming to the monastery, right, to celebrate the birth, enlightenment, and death of the Buddha. That's what Wesek is about. And so they come and they bring food, and we eat and we listen to a Dhamma talk. And then Bante says something like, thank you for coming. You are more than welcome to stay and meditate with us. And guess what happens? Nobody's, maybe two or three people actually stay and meditate, right? I mean, I'm there because I'm staying there for the weekend. But it's easy to go through the motions. Even somebody who has been raised in a Buddhist culture, which in a lot of ways I kind of see almost um, as a hindrance to actual Buddhist practice sometimes. But these are people who are raised in this Buddhist culture, and even they're not too keen on staying and meditating. So, but meditation is really the core part of Buddhism. And I haven't seen a tradition yet that, even traditions that have extra layers, or traditions that have more depth and complexity than others, it's still all about practice. And I say this all the time. I know it's a broken record, but this is what my teachers say to me. And because I see truth in it, I'm always going to say it. Even if I become a monk and I'm teaching, I'm going to say the same thing every single time. That's just the way it is, because that's the truth. I never want to lead anybody down a different path. That's not a truthful path. So there are many different things going on. There's also a great video called Meditation in a Moment, and it really is. It's basically the Buddhist M&Ms. It's just done a little bit differently. I don't know. Has anybody seen that video that's available on YouTube? Meditation in a Moment. I can post that meditation, that link here. Here's the link. So there are definitely things to do other than sitting on a cushion. As a matter of fact, for me personally, I don't like sitting on a cushion. I'd rather, I enjoy meditating any other way than just sitting on a cushion. The sitting on the cushion, the sitting down and meditating is important, but it's not important if that's the only thing you think that you can do and you don't want to do it, or you don't feel like you can do it. No, it's chair, cushion, it's the same thing. And especially if you have, like, some of you have heard me tell my story a bunch of times, where I developed a pretty negative mind state about sitting meditation. That's still kind of there to this day. It's nowhere near as powerful as it was, um, but it's still there. And and this kind of colored my view on meditation for a long time. And this is going back when I really was, we're talking 10 years ago, where I didn't know a lot about Buddhism, but I wanted to, I practice meditation and learn and that kind of stuff. And I thought, I learned, okay, these are the rules, this is what you're supposed to do, and I tried it and it wasn't working out. And then, eventually I just gave up. Whereas then coming back years later, finding good monks, good monastic teachers who were able to give me a different viewpoint on it, made all the difference. So, in the end, the message is really the last words of the Buddha. All things are impermanent. All compound things are ever changing. Strive. Strive diligently. Work out your own salvation with diligence. That's really what it comes down to. And that was the Buddha's, really his message. You know, nobody can do it for you. Yeah, but you can't realize that without first striving, can you? At least that seems like my faulty, non-enlightened perception thinks. I don't know. But okay, so that it is past 9:30, and if we have any questions or we want to discuss anything specific regarding that, or if you'd like to talk about your meditation and how that works and what you try to do, um, we can talk about that. Oh, now here comes to another negative mind state of mine. Big time. I um I prefer to meditate outdoors. Always. If I can, I meditate outdoors. But that's not good. You should be able to meditate anywhere at any time, right? But it's good that, you recognize this. But for me personally, like the very first time I went to the monastery, right? I and the very first time I did the retreat, first time I was experienced with 6 hours a day of meditating in this hall. I just didn't want. I mean, I would get frustrated, and the pain would get to me, and I'd be negative. And you know what? I say, you know what? I'm gonna go out and meditate on a rock in a nice spot that I like at the monastery. And so I did. And of course, going outside for me, it made total difference. But and then I spoke to uh, one of the monks, Bhante Silananda, and he says, when you come to be, at the retreat, you should be inside with us. And at first I didn't like that, but now after many retreats and kind of getting being a little bit more advanced, or if that's the way you want to put it, I understand where he's coming from. I definitely understand that. And people talk about there being this energy when people meditate in a group. I can't claim to have ever felt that. In all honesty, I feel energy being alone by myself in the woods, meditating. That's my preferred place to meditate. And well, what is it? And when I heard what the Buddha said, um, in the Satipatthana Sutta, right? You go to under a tree, or to an abandoned home, or to here. You're going away to these places, these outdoor, remote places to meditate, and that is where I like to do. I mean, I love, I'll meditate when I go on a retreat. I'll meditate those 7 hours indoors, but sometimes I just like to myself. I'll go up to, um, I'll go up in the mountain and I'll just meditate. I feel like if I become a monk there and I end up, teaching eventually, I want to say, okay, well, we're going to meditate and we're going to meditate outside. It's beautiful, but you know what? There's a lot of. I also started a group, a meditation group in my area, and what I found is people don't like to meditate outside, and there's two big reasons. During the cold period, it's cold, and during the warm period, there's bugs, and they don't want to deal with either one of those. Well, oh, that's good. But yeah, they do have meditation nets. It's something that the monks get. But you know what? I can't expect anyway. Again, I have no qualms, or I don't have any um, thought in my head that I'm an advanced meditator at all. I'm not. I'm nowhere close to an advanced meditator. But I have been able to do stuff like being out in the woods at Bhavana and having 10 or 15 mosquitoes on me, you know, pinching me at the same time, and using that as an experience to be mindful of, and also to give metta. Now, when you say stuff like that to people, like, oh, you're nuts. But Ajahn Brahm, who tells his story of being a young monk in Thailand, and them meditating and having like dozens and dozens, even 100 mosquitoes all over them, and him going to Ajahn Chah, his teacher, and saying, we can't meditate. Look at all these mosquitoes. And Ajahn Chah said, well, from now on, the mosquitoes are Ajahn mosquito. Ajahn just means teacher in Thai. So you're using that experience, those mosquitoes, as a teacher. And when reading that, and I said, you know what? Yeah, that's good. It's, does it hurt? Yeah, but it's amazing how when you don't have any negativity or fear attached to it, it doesn't hurt that bad. Now I'll admit I was walking meditation. Uh, that's part of what I'm talking about, the fear, right? The fear, the actuality of contacting West Nile virus from a bug is much, much less minuscule compared to the feeling of the possibility of it because we listen to the news. Things are something like that. We think that, oh my God, this can happen, that can happen. And well, Ajahn Brahm was in there, was in the jungles in Thailand. What was the worst thing, and a very real threat, a more threat than the West Nile virus, was malaria. You're talking about being in the jungles in Thailand. And some monks did have malaria, and some monks never did. And, but what I find, and I could do a whole hour talk on this, is the less you worry about something, the less likely anything bad is likely to happen. I don't worry about mosquitoes giving me anything. Now, maybe one day, will I get West Nile virus? It's possible. Anything's possible. I could, I have more of a chance of, dying in a car crash. Or did you know that? Did you know that the Earth has the same odds of being hit by an asteroid that we do of dying in an airplane crash? Is that an interesting statistic? That's a whole other topic. We could talk about fear and all these kind of things. But but now, and speaking of fear, I was moving on to the next thing. The last time I was out there, I was walking meditation, and I felt a big thump on the top of my head, and I knew it was a big bug. I was like, okay, hey bug, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I felt a piercing in my skull. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. And I just kept walking. And it was painful. It was definitely more painful than a mosquito bite. But I just tried to be with it, observe it, give metta. And then I saw it fly away, and I'm like, holy crap, that was a big ass bug. And it was like maybe 3-4 inches. It was like a big, and I was like, I've never seen a bug like that drinks your blood. That was interesting, right? So that during that walking meditation, I was able to just abide with that. But later on, while I was working, I was moving stuff and raking and all this stuff. It happened again. Oh, I forgot to mention that it actually, like, there was blood on my head too. I put my hand there and I walked back and there was blood on my hands. Like, ooh, that was interesting, right? So what did I do, right? While I was meditating, all of those cues that create fear was not there. But then I thought about, after it was over, I thought about the pain. I saw the blood, and that created these contacts in my brain, in my mind, of yeah, that's not good. So the same day, a couple hours later, I'm up more in the woods and I'm working, and it happens again. Boom! It comes on to me, and then the fear happens. More fear than I didn't have any fear before, but the fear of the pain, fear of the blood, all this stuff. I didn't want that to happen, and so I tried to abide with it for a little bit, but the fear and the anxiety reached the point where I actually swiped it off my head. Now I didn't kill it, and I don't think I hurt it. I just moved my head real quick, and I kind of pushed it off. And so even that, right? I almost considered that a failure in a way, but it was a learning experience in that I was able to see the anxiety and the fear from that. It doesn't have to be there. As a matter of fact, the Buddha talks about fearlessness and how important that is, and how those who are enlightened, there is no fear. But that's a whole other talk. And I don't quite remember exactly how we got off topic from this. But, oh yeah, that's right, because we were talking about what people are afraid of and meditating inside and outside. That's right. Yeah. So people don't want to deal with bugs. They don't want to deal. They don't want to have to. They have this perception, again, this perception of meditation. They want to be in a place where there's no bugs, there's no sounds, there's no this, there's no that. It's supposed to be like the vacuum of space so they can be peaceful and meditate. But that's not meditation. That's not meditation at all. Meditation is being able to observe these and abide with these things and see that um, there is, that is how you learn. That is how you observe. That is how you develop your mindfulness. Based on being in a place with no sensual sense contact, or I mean, even in the quietest monastery, there's definitely some kind of sound or some kind of thing that somebody can be distracted by. Huh. I've never heard of that before. That sounds interesting. Dark refuge. Okay. I'll have to look into that. There's so much stuff about Buddhism that I don't know yet. And I enjoy learning about it. So, even if it's something that I might never put into practice myself, it's something that I enjoy learning about and to know. Okay. So I guess, do we have any other comments or questions or feelings about your own meditation practices or anything like that? Nope. Okay then. I think we can end here. So I always end with saying two things. Giving metta. I always say Suki Hantu, which is may you be happy. And I always say may your practice flourish, right? Because may your practice go well and you practice and you're able to develop peace and happiness. And in doing so, giving a gift of peace and happiness to the world, changing the world around you through your own practice. It's hard to see that sometimes, but your practice is not just for you. And this is, in Mahayana, there's more of this concept of doing things for other people. But even in Theravada, even the Buddha himself, he never said, you do the practice for yourself, but you do it for what your practice also benefits everybody else as well. One way or the other, it benefits all beings. When you practice, when you live um, a beneficial life and like following the precepts, when you meditate, when you develop wisdom, you're creating that better world around you, and that has a great effect on other people, on the people around you. Whether that is they see how you're doing well and they're interested, or whether the fact that during the day they're going to deal with people that are going to aggravate them, and you're a gift to them because they know that they'll never have any issues from you or have to worry about you doing anything to them, these kind of things. That's the importance also of meditation practice. So, may your practice flourish.